starting from a perfect place, I think it wouldn't have been as interesting. And we've had ups and downs. I've had periods where we've done really well. I've had periods where we've done badly. And that really, it's the kind of roller coaster journey that makes it interesting. I think if it had been easy, it wouldn't have been fun.
Welcome to the Motorsports and Driver Development Show. My name is Katie.
And I'm Keto.
And today we are joined with Dan Coverdale, who is a UX designer and also the founder and owner of Final 10th. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. So why don't you give us the elevator pitch? Just tell people what Final 10th is if they don't already know.
I would say it was an afternoon's work back in 2011 that got out of hand. And it's kind of expanded since then. So it's my side project alongside my full-time job. So I'm a illustrator, product designer, business owner, do a little bit of photography as well, kind of anything that fits the needs of the business.
Great.
And Final 10th, what is it?
I had this down in my head. Final 10th to me it's about like the last 10% of something. You can get 90% of the way with something, but really you need that passion and that drive to succeed, to fill in that final 10%. And for me, that's what the brand is. It's not going 90% of the way, it's going 100% of the way.
Yeah, I love that.
Deep.
And, go ahead.
Is that very deep? Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's so, it's interesting. You recently changed the name of your business, and I actually am really curious about the name you had before.
I think, yeah, so we were called We the Terrors before, which was, I think when I started, a lot of this was in its infancy. The industry was a lot smaller. There weren't really many people doing what we were doing. So really in that respect, we were kind of like a challenger brand. We came in and did things differently to how people had done it before. So the name was a reference to the kind of the noise and the spectacle of rally cars. So that kind of filtered through into the product. I've grown up, the business has grown up. It's been around for a while. I think we just got to a point where I wanted to step it forward in terms of professionalism and just broaden the base a little bit. So we were still a challenger, but kind of we knew what we were doing a little bit more. And I'm a bit more professional in what I'm doing now as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting that you describe the business as an afternoon's work. Because I look at, so just to everyone listening and watching, if you go to the website, there are sort of rally-focused stickers, T-shirts, coffee mugs, and they are so clearly made by someone who loves the sport. Like, it's just through and through. It's so clear that you love it. So to say it's like, oh, it was an afternoon's work that it's kind of evolved. I'm like, no, there was a lot that went into getting this up and going.
I had an initial idea for a T-shirt, and it was just a text T-shirt. Mm-hmm. I did it in an afternoon, just kind of playing around with. I was teaching myself illustration, and I wanted to move beyond what I was doing in terms of my day job and explore different areas of creative. So it kind of snowballed from that. The first one we did really well. I was kind of surprised at how that was received. And then I had a second design, and then it just sort of snowballed from there. One design fed into another, and then it's kind of grown exponentially since then. So now it's much, much, much bigger, and it takes a lot more than an afternoon.
So you definitely have a love for rally. Anyone who clicks on your website is pretty obvious. So why don't you tell us when that love affair began and how it began?
I think with sports, particularly in the UK, I guess you kind of fall into what your parents like. So my father didn't like football. He wasn't interested in football. We were never a football family. My mother didn't have an interest in any sports, really. She preferred kind of horse racing. So my dad was really into motorsports. So for me, initially, it was touring cars. So I picked up kind of the super touring era of touring cars. My earliest kind of rally memory was of the Network Q, the year it snowed, and Stig Blomqvist, I think he finished third or fourth in the Skoda Felicia. And that's the first kind of rally I can actually remember watching. There's lots of events locally, kind of single value rallies, we call them. So we went to a few of those. And then in 1999, I went to Silverstone with my father and my brother for the Network King. And that was my first WRC event. And then from there, it's kind of grown, maybe got a little bit out of hand at times, just to become like a real passion. And sometimes it's kind of like very consuming. So that's been my focus for the past year. I do like other forms of motorsport, but really rallying is the core of my interest, and it always has been.
So is that now, is it a family affair now, multi-generational, get together, get the cowbells, head out to race and do your thing? Or
we used to drag my grandfather to a few events. I don't know if he was as keen as we were. My father has been to several events with me. My brother's been to events with me. My wife, Justine's been to a few with me. I think she's less interested than I am. And I have a 3-year-old daughter now, and she's got a little bit of interest. I think she's more interested in kind of Peppa Pig and horses and that sort of thing really at the moment. So maybe that will come later. But yeah, it's a real kind of family thing now. My dad's very involved with rallying the marshals. He goes to lots of events, drives an Impreza, like kind of all the cliches really.
Mm.
That's so great. I love that you've even tried to take your daughter. I mean, she'll grow up and it'll be a thing that she's super knowledgeable about, and really, I bet she'll get excited about it.
I mean, one thing I definitely noticed in my travels to the UK, for rally stuff, is that it's actually really acceptable over there for girls to be girls and still be rally drivers.
Yeah.
I mean, I see pink cars with flowers and hearts on it, and the girls kick ass, and you're just like, okay, well, this is a little different, but it's awesome.
I think it's something we're getting better at. I don't personally feel we are at the level we should be at the moment. The drivers like Katie Munnings, who it's great to see how she's developed through different series, and that I think maybe some of the support network for females in the sport isn't as big as it could be. I think that's something as a sport we need to address. I think we're slowly getting there, but yeah, unfortunately at the moment it is majority men. I think at clubman level it's much more diverse, but I think maybe that doesn't carry up to the more senior series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We do a lot with our local series to have introductory classes and practice days and things like that, because that seems to be a really great way for anyone who's new, but specifically females, to say, okay, if this is non-competition, I'm more comfortable getting my feet wet and trying it. And so we do a lot of little things like that seem to really help. But I just think there's a culture that somehow has said, without saying it, like, dudes only.
Right.
Yeah. But
yeah.
Well, we get off track. I would first like to know, what was the first shirt you did? You said you did one and it did really well. Is it one that you still have in your store?
It was a driver's name T-shirt, and there's a really iconic Beatles shirt with just John, Paul, Ringo, and George. Sorry. Yeah. I'll get chastised for that later. And it was purely the names, and it's funny, I had a lot of debate about who would be on there, what order they would be in. I remember having Ogier on there at the time, and I didn't think he'd amount to much, which is one of those opinions from the past I'm quite happy to be wrong on. Obviously, ended up being multiple champion. So, yeah, people just really bought into that, I think, because the style was very bold, and it was very different to what was out there. Historically, in the UK, motorsport merchandise tends to be very a little bit dull, not very exciting. I think they're all roughly the same sort of size. So I think what we did was just something so different because we didn't have the constraints of appealing to sponsors or corporate guidelines and those sort of things.
Mm-hmm.
Being more abstract gave me the freedom to make something much different.
Yeah.
So how did this first shirt, you had this idea in your mind, you got it onto a shirt, which is about this much of,
The process. Yeah.
Right. So how did you go about selling it and, marketing it out there and turning it into a hit?
I think in terms of business plan then, I didn't know anything. It was a very, very steep learning curve. The most difficult part initially was finding a supplier that would do a short run. I didn't want to do this direct-to-garment printing, which is kind of what most people do, and then the screen printing, which is a bit more durable. I wanted to go down the screen printing route from the start because the quality on stuff I'd had previously was very poor, and I really wanted to be better at what I was doing. So finding that initial supplier was the trickiest part. I think in terms of marketing, initially it was on Instagram, so we got a little bit of attraction there. It was mainly through posting rally photographs. And the initial run was only about 10 shirts. So selling 10 was okay. Scaling it up to, normally we do about 15 a run now, was the tricky part. So it's been doing a little bit each time for several years. It's been a long overnight success, really.
That is consistently the trend. It takes 10 years to be an overnight success. So when did you make the jump from just sort of using Instagram or pictures online to actually having an online shop and going, I won't say all in because you've maintained a full-time job as well, but like really putting a lot more effort into it?
I think it was sort of 2013 where I bought the stuff for a trade store. So we used to do events. We did a few events. So buying all the equipment, buying the shelter, buying the display pieces. Suddenly I had to have a range of stuff. You can't do a trade store with 2 products. So I think I had sort of 10 initially. So it kind of snowballed from there, really. And as the business grew, different areas needed to scale up. So from sort of 2013 onwards, it's progressively got bigger and I've got better at doing what I can do.
And so do you sell primarily in the UK or do you sell mainland Europe, US, Asia, Africa?
Most of the UK, we've got quite a big customer base in Finland, which has evolved over the past few years. We do have several customers in the States. I sent a package to Guam as well about a week ago.
Oh,
cool. We've had customers in Australia, we've had customers in Germany, France, Italy, Spain, New Zealand, Australia, even Japan, several European countries. So it's over time, it's really expanded, and having a really decent store has enabled me to sell globally. You can sell globally now quite easily at a small level. I don't know if it's scaled further, how much more difficult that would be.
That's so interesting. So talk to us a little about your process now of, I want to call it your creative process, but it's so much more. Do you just have ideas and you're like, oh, let's see if this sticks? Or are you really thoughtful and methodical about the products you create and how you add them to your store?
I think in the early stages, I would have an idea. I think as we've gone on over the years, it's more difficult to do that because you can end up repeating yourself if you're not careful. There's a tendency to do the same sort of stuff. So now my process really is, for the most part, I attend events. So I'll go and walk around an event. We've got some really good kind of big rally events in the UK. Rally Day is a very big kind of circuit-based event where lots of cars are there. There's an event called Race Retro, which is a classic motorsport show earlier on in the year, and normally you get upwards of 200 rally cars there. So I can walk around a paddock and you kind of get inspired that way. Off the back of that, I'll go and then do the research. So you'll get an initial idea at an event, and then you'll go away and you'll think, okay, is this a t-shirt? Is it a mug? Is it a sticker? Is this part of a range? Should this be released in the summer? Is it a winter product? Can I do this? A lot of the time is the restraint.
So you just said all these things that I hadn't even thought about, which is like, is this a summer product? How do you even make those decisions? Are you collecting market data? Are you relying on a bit of your gut, just knowing about the industry?
I think sometimes it is guesswork. Things I think will do really well, sometimes they've done really badly. And sometimes things I think will do really well have done really well. Some of it is knowing the customer base. I try and talk to my community as much as possible, and they feed into what we're doing a lot. So I get lots of kind of unsolicited design requests and things throughout the year. Some of them are very specific, and some of them are a bit more vague. So it's just taking all those bits and then putting them in the right order. So I do have some historical sales data, which helps inform decisions a little bit. But sometimes it's just kind of gut, really.
Yeah. If you're really passionate, though, I bet your gut is very informative. It's probably more of an educated gut.
Yeah, and I think I've always tried to make stuff I would want to buy, and stuff I'm passionate about. Really, if you're not passionate about something and you're pushing it, then really it kind of shows, and people don't buy into that. If you're passionate about something and you go ahead and do it, I think a lot of the time people will buy into that. I try to be a bit more abstract lately in terms of what we're doing, because that's what we did initially, and that was the stuff that people really got fired up about, and that's the stuff I'm more passionate about. So I've done some kind of weird projects lately, just to be a bit more experimental. Sometimes things don't go forward, and sometimes they do. But I think that for me is part of the process, and I really enjoy that part of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing that originally caught my eye about your shop is that you do have things that no one else has. I think that there's obviously not a ton of like rally t-shirt shops, at least not for us. There aren't a ton out there. So the pickings are relatively slim, but what you do see is often a lot of similarities. So I love that you're kind of focusing on that a little bit. I'm curious if you've had anything that maybe was more of a success than you expected, that just like blew it out of the water and was a total surprise.
I did a Ford Mark II Escort design based on Moll's Gap in Ireland, which is a famous rally stage. I'd had a little bit of an inkling about the passion for this particular place. I've been there as well. But I ordered 50 initially, and literally I sold them straight out of the box. I didn't have time to fold them. The orders kind of really flooded me in an afternoon, and by sort of 5 o'clock they were all gone. And then I sold another 2 boxes of those, so we ended up selling about 150 of these t-shirts in the end. And I hadn't anticipated that level of passion, but I've grown to know over the several years that the Irish rally community in particular is very, very passionate about rallying, because that to them it's a really top tier sport, and it's very kind of ingrained in their culture in a lot of respects. So whenever we've done anything kind of even vaguely Irish related, it's always done really well.
So do you still sell that t-shirt?
No, it was I probably should actually, shouldn't I?
Well, we'll plug it here for you, and then we'll do a big release. And
from what I'm hearing, yeah, you probably should.
So you've already like, oh, go ahead.
So I get better at making stuff. The stuff I did originally was very simplistic. As my skills progress, stuff kind of gets benched, and sometimes we'll revisit it, and sometimes we won't. But I think I'm very critical about what I've done previously, and I always want to kind of step forward with it.
Yeah. So So my background is actually in fashion design, which I hated the industry because of sort of what you're talking about. Like you work on something and then you have feelings about it. Guido does a lot of fabrication. He builds a lot of things, and there's a lot of emotion wrapped up in that process. And I think a lot of people don't realize it. Do you go back and ever, and I am asking this question from personal experience, I'm not expecting a specific answer, but do you ever go back and look at something you did and just be like, oh my gosh, why did I put that out there?
Yeah, all the time. All the time. I did it this morning, actually, on a design we did a few years ago. The thing with T-shirts and products in particular is I always want stuff to be perfect, but really, if it was to be perfect, you would just do it perpetually and then never release it. So one of the biggest things I've learned over my career is getting it to a point that you're really happy with it and then going, okay, let's put that thing over here and release it. Because the best product is the product that released. If you don't finish it, then it just sits there and then you lose interest in it, and then it goes in an archive somewhere, and then you quite often don't revisit it.
100%. We all do it. We get a little frozen in perfectionism, and you have to launch before you're ready.
Yeah. There's different tiers for, well, what I call good enough, so like if you build something for off-road that, is going to get hammered by rocks, you don't need to get every little detail out of it and make it a mirror finish. But, if it's going on an aircraft, then it needs the mirror finish. So there's these different levels of good enough. That definitely is in my world that way. So
yeah.
That's interesting.
Do you have favorites
in terms of
your designs? Like, do you have like a favorite shirt or sticker you've ever done?
I did a Ford RS200 T-shirt, and it had the Beast of Borum on it, which was kind of a really abstract theme at the time. It was kind of playing on Borum isn't there anymore. The Ford base, before it moved over to Malcolm Wilson, they basically did away with most of the Ford manufacturing there. So it was kind of playing on kind of like a horror aspect, and it being a ghost and kind of referencing grouping. It was a really kind of abstract concept, but it did really well. And you get requested kind of 5 to 6 times a year that we reprint that. So hopefully I can revisit that in the future. It's always stuff that I'm a real big Ford RS200 fan. So if I've done something with a car or a particular year that I'm really interested in, I think those end up being my favorite products.
Do you ever make anything just for you? Like you just make one and you wear it around?
I've got an office full of I'm surrounded by these little Hinkelsteins at the moment.
Wait, I don't know what those are.
The Hinkelstein, from Germany, right?
Yes. This is Panzerblatt stage on Rally Germany is a tank range. So Hinkelstein is a big concrete block which basically keeps tanks on the road.
Yeah.
When they're on maneuvers. It's a very niche thing.
It's just that one stage, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just that one stage. And I think in some respects as well, it's kind of infamous because people have damaged cars and then so it was just I like playing around with different things.
Yeah. For those who don't know, what it basically is it's and correct me if I'm wrong, it's a 3-meter block with 2 meters buried, 1 meter above ground. And the idea was that during the tank training, if the tanks went off course, they would climb these blocks and it would sort of point them back onto the road. And now they use that as a stage, but like imagine like an interrupted concrete wall. Mm-hmm. And if you get off course, and I don't know, they're like maybe a couple meters off the road. If you get off course and you snatch one of those with the car, it's epic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
also, that's a great name.
It has become kind of famous car destruction devices.
That's hilarious.
So that's great. I love that.
Let's talk about the business side of things a little bit. What are the parts of your job that you had no idea would be parts of your job when you started all of this?
Customer service is the biggest one. dealing with that is very difficult. It's very rewarding as well, because if you go the extra mile, then the customer's going to be really happy and they'll come back. And I kind of pride myself on giving everyone gets a really personal service. And I very rarely get any kind of complaints, really, because most people tend to buy stuff over and over. We've got a really good customer retention rate. Kind of logistics, really. Figuring out postage. Will this fit in this box? How many can I get in that size postage? How much will that cost me? Can I ship this and make a profit on it? Is there enough margin in this for me to cover costs? Those are things initially, when we were smaller, they were very simple. But as we've got bigger, they get more complicated.
Well, you were talking about the sheer diversity in places that you ship to, and immediately my brain went to the logistics. Like, how? Do you use I don't know if it's consistent around the world. Like, do you use UPS or something like that to deliver all the same places, or do you have to pick different services based on where you're delivering to?
For the most part, we just use the Royal Mail. Our postal system is pretty good, I would say. The problem tends to be with the postal systems in the country we ship to. Some countries have their own nuances, and some things will take longer in certain places. Always had issues with Canada. I think there's issues with Canada Post for some reason.
Interesting.
But it's kind of figuring out those nuances and building in the timescales and making sure you've charged enough. And does this need to be a track service for a certain country? Can it go by service now? There's a lot of different variables and things. I've mostly got it right. Sometimes it's tricky, and I've made mistakes in the past where you maybe not charging the postage, so we end up covering a lot of that. But it's got easier as I've got more experience.
So is your number one complaint then in your customer service area, is that shipping?
Like how long it takes?
Like actually getting it?
We've got it's kind of like a little bit of a ninja. When a customer will email and say, where's a package? Normally it arrives the next day.
Of course.
Yeah. Or it's out for delivery. Yeah.
You actually had someone email you, and they within like 45 minutes emailed back and were like, sorry, I got it.
They're like, hey, can I get a tracking number on that? I'm like, yeah, let me get that for you. And they're like, never mind, just showed up. Okay.
I've received, you've said it's been delivered, but it's not. And then they'll go downstairs and check another mailbox and it's there. Or a neighbour will have signed for the parcel, or they weren't in and the parcel's gone to a depot and it's been in a depot for a week. So those are the two kind of main complaints, really.
So getting into this rally business, you didn't understand that you were going to become a shipping expert.
No, I didn't. Well, I didn't think I'd be an expert in a lot of things, really.
Yeah.
Right.
With the business, you have to learn as you go along. There's always stuff you'll be bad at, but you can get better over time. So I think everything's at a level now where I'm pretty competent in what we're doing.
Good. Yeah, I would agree, by the way. You also mentioned unsolicited requests. I imagine that takes a bit of energy. People probably don't realize, but if somebody says, hey, you should make this thing, I assume you're not just like dismissing them. You're probably A, thinking, is this a good idea? Yes or no? And then B, B, like then responding thoughtfully to the person and letting them know, like, thanks for your input. How much of your time do you spend doing that?
Not a lot. It tends to be via Twitter. I have a Google form where people can submit ideas. A lot of people don't know about that. I don't really publicize that a lot, and that feeds into a document. So I do record things that people have asked for, because over time, if several people have asked for something, then obviously that's an area we can look into. So some of them are a bit wacky sometimes. Some of them are very specific, like, okay, I want a variant of a 2003 Impreza wagon with certain wheels on it and a certain colour, but you need to make 50 of them. there's a lot of that really.
And you follow that with, so you want to purchase 50
You want to buy all 50?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's really funny.
It's a process of, you filter through the stuff you get, and you kind of you pick out the really good ideas, and that filters into your own ideas, and then we kind of like collide in the middle really, and then those end up being products in them. And
so how often do you do commissioned work?
Not as much. I did a lot over the summer. I was actually made redundant in February, so I was out of work for a period of 4 months, so I picked up a lot of commissioned work over the summer. I've done bits with M Sport before. I did a little bit with Rally Travel, which is a specialised travel agent for Rally in the UK. And I've done little bits here and there for teams. I've done a few bits for teams in the USA as well. Kind of grassroots teams where it says me like make a sticker or give us a little bit of design for its t-shirt. So I think the business has always been something flexible, so I can pick up projects that I really want to work on. I don't need the commissions to keep the business going because we've got a good cash flow overall. But those, I'm able to work on really interesting projects that I'm passionate about doing.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. I mean, small teams hearing that, you're willing to take that on, my guess is you'll probably get a few phone calls.
Yeah.
I mean, small teams often think, I can't do this because they're going to want a run of like 100 or 500, and like, what am I going to do with that? I have to store them in my spare bathroom, type thing, So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure people love that and do smaller runs and design.
Well, and I mean, you did our 2019 Rallycross Fest event logo. We did all our stickers and everything. And I'm assuming my feelings are similar to other people's feelings, which is there's sort of an existing rally style, event stuff, very similar. You could do something that has always been that way. Yeah. Or you could go to someone totally outside of rally and have something designed, and maybe they do or don't get the sport and whatever. Or you can go to somebody like you who loves the sport, really gets it, is going to come up with something creative that is not going to look like everything else, but still will fit within the world where you are. And I think that's the part that if you're a small team or if you're a small company or something of that nature, it's hard to find someone like that.
Yeah, I would agree.
Mm-hmm. And more than just, graphic things. I think there's a lot of need for businesses that are like rally experienced.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. Starting all over again, what would you, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently? Or would you?
I think the journey is part of the fun. Starting from a perfect place, I think it wouldn't have been as interesting. And we've had ups and downs. I've had periods where we've done really well. I've had periods where we've done badly. And that really, it's the kind of roller coaster journey that makes it interesting. I think if it had been easy, it wouldn't have been fun. I think supplies was the issue initially. So I think if I'd have known what I know now in terms of suppliers, I think the initial products could have been a lot better than they were. I think maybe we would have had a bit more traction earlier on. I think starting a business now, I would say, is probably a little bit easier because motorsport and rallying has really developed from where it was when I started. I think with social media and just the availability of decent tools to make content, I think you can be much bigger than you are from the start. I think it was always a struggle initially to build that base community and then to grow it. Whereas now you've got so many different social media avenues you can work on. And really back then it was mainly sort of Twitter and Instagram that I had the traction on.
Yeah. Especially with a visual business like yours.
Yeah.
Something like Instagram is such a game changer. And I love following you on Instagram.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I definitely agree in business, making the mistakes, tripping and falling teaches you how to get up and stand up, and those are often the most important lessons, that you learn as you're moving forward. And so if you started where you already know, you wouldn't have those same, punishing mistakes that make you learn, do not do this, and so, I agree. I think the journey is a big part of it. Yeah.
Talk to us a little about juggling your job, your family, a business. How are you super structured? Are you how do you manage it all?
I'm much better than I was. I used to be very kind of scattergun in terms of how I would do stuff. Now I have Trello boards, I have documents, I have spreadsheets, I track all my sales, I've got Google Analytics data, I've got do stuff in TweetDeck, I've got all these different tools that help me work with less time but more efficiently. So it's kind of evenings and time a weekend, and my wife gets really annoyed. Sometimes I'll have an idea when I'm just about to fall asleep, and I have a little notepad next to the bed, and I'll write it down. Those ideas aren't always very good, but just writing down ideas and making a log of stuff when you have it is really helpful. So that means I can work efficiently with the limited time I have. Yeah, the time is much less. I've got a 3-year-old daughter. She takes a lot of time in a good way. Really, it helps me work smarter.
Yeah, definitely. I will say, if there's any skills or support you feel like you need, she's 3, you can groom her now and have your star employee in 13 years. So, keep that in the back of your mind.
She's really good at logistics. Posting, putting things in boxes. She's really good at taking things out of boxes. If I need anything taken out of a box, she'll do that at the speed of light.
That's hilarious. I feel like you should have her on customer service call.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
No one can be mad at a 3-year-old. They can't, or at least not for long. You can be mad for a hot minute, especially after they take all the things out of the boxes. Right. So do you have any, I don't know if you could share this, do you have any projects coming up or anything you're releasing that you're really excited about?
So normally towards the end of the year, we do a bigger release for kind of September, October. Mm-hmm. In the summer, people don't really tend to buy stuff. People are on holiday, this year excluded. I think in the summer, kind of more like lifestyle products is what I've always tried to make stuff that can fit into people's lives, and things like mugs, and we do outdoor cups, and we've done flasks. Just stuff you can use every day, rather than it just be a really hyper-specific T-shirt you might wear to a car meet or something like that. So we've got a big range of stuff launching in about a month or so.
In a month. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for spending this time with us today. Tell people where they can find you and your shop online.
It's if we still do that, final10th.com. And you can get everything on there. And on Instagram as well, we are final10th.
Awesome. Great. Yeah, I don't think you have to put in the www anymore. I'm pretty sure it just takes you there. But
you can still do it.
You can still do it.
I don't think you have to.
I used to get the internet on AOL on little discs that came in the post. So
yeah, and you had to plug it into the phone jack. Yeah, totally. Well, thank you again. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So yeah, I still say www.
It's fine. Thank you again. Really appreciate your time. This was so fun.
Yes, great.
Thanks for having me.